As I mentioned to you before, the Chumash Dvorim, which is the review that Moshe Rabbeinu presents before us of the events that occurred to Klal Yisrael when they left Mitzrayim until the day that he is speaking to them just before their entry into Eretz Yisrael, that this review fills in, so to speak, many of the details which do not appear in the original version of events as recorded for us in Shmos, Vayikra, Bamidbar. So it's a type of explanation, a commentary that Moshe adds to what occurred before. The famous parish on Chumash Dvorim by Reb David Tzvi Hoffman, who was the dean, the rector, the Rosh Yeshiva of Hildesheimer Seminary in Berlin in the early part of the 20th century. He was a great Talmid Chacham, and he was a great posek. There's a marvelous sefer Lamed Lahoil, and he was a man of great intellect. He was a PhD. He was really very outstanding. So he has a parish on Chumash Dvorim that, because Chumash Dvorim is one of the Chumashim that the Bible critics, that the Haskalah, that those who denied the authenticity of Torah concentrated on, because here it says one thing and there it said something else. So who wrote Chumash Dvarim, and when was it written, and why isn't it the same, and all of the superficial questions that generation of excuse me, that generation of pseudo scholars raised. So his parish is an answer basically to them. That was his intended audience, to defend the authenticity of Chumash Dvarim from these attacks by those who came to destroy Torah. So he points out that the Torah here in Chumash Dvarim comes to give us a complete picture. It comes to fill out many of the things that were left out for whatever reason. The Torah is not a history book. So what was not quoted or described in the previous Chumashim, Moshe Rabbeinu takes the liberty of informing us now. So we had that regarding the spies, that Moshe Rabbeinu recalls the story of the Meraglim, and he tells it in a different way than we would have thought if we had only seen the Parsha of Shlach. We only see the Parsha of Shlach. It looks like Moshe, Kaviochel, even the Rabbanu Shalom is the initiator of the story of the Meraglim. But when Moshe describes it, Vatikruvu Nelai Kulchem, all of you came and asked for it, so the Jewish people were the initiators. And Kaviochel, Rabbanu Shalom, left it up to them. He didn't command Moshe to send them. And we find the same thing by the Aseres Advorim that we read this past Shabbat, the difference between Zohar and Shomer and the other differences that appear in the text. So all of that is meant to give us a fuller picture, a fuller understanding of what happened. So here in this week's Parsha, we have a description of Moshe. Moshe is accepting the luchos for the second time. First time Moshe came down from the mountain, so the luchos fell from his hand. and they were shattered. Shabreim, Moshe said, I broke them. And at the end of his life, the Lord, so to speak, congratulates him for having done so. He supports him in that decision. But now he goes up and he prays for the Jewish people. And Vayomar Hashem salachti kidvarecha. The Jewish people are forgiven. And then we're going to have the second luchos. And the second luchos, Moshe fashions the stone, and Kaviochel, the writing is placed upon it, and Moshe has to come down. And those are the luchos that the Jewish people had with them and carried with them the 40 years in the desert. So there the Torah tells Moshe, Vasisa lecho Aaron eitz. This week's parsha, it says that the Rebbeinu Shalom told me then that I should make an ark, a box made out of wood, and to put in that box the luchos that the Rebbeinu Shalom was giving him to bring down to the Jewish people that they would have with them. So what is this story of the Aron Eitz, of the wooden box? So Rashi is of the opinion, we know that there were the Aron that Bezalel constructed, the Aron Kodesh in the Mishkan, were 3 boxes, each one fit into the previous box. So there was the first box, which was made of gold, so that the exterior of the box, people looking at the Aron would see the gold. And then there was an interior box that was made of wood. And then there was a third box, which also was made of gold, that fitted into the box of wood. So you had these 3 boxes. So Rashi is of the opinion that the Aron Eitz, which is referred to here as coming from down from Har Sinai, is going to be this wooden box, which will fit between the 2 gold boxes, and which will be part of the permanent Aron Kodesh. The Ramban and other Meforshim say that that wooden box was constructed by Bezalel. That's part of the construction of the Mishkan, of the artifacts of the Mishkan. And therefore they say that this was a separate Aron, a separate box, ark, and that this was the Aron Hayotze LaMilchama. When the Jewish people went to war in the time of Yoshua, the Shoftim, so the Aron went with them. The Luchos went with them. And in fact, we have in Tanakh that because of that, the Aron was captured by the Plishtim. So the whole series of events, the Plishtim put it up in the temple of their god Dagon, and because the Aron was there, the idols fell and were shattered until the Plishtim begged that the Jewish people should take back the Aron. It was too lethal for them. And then you had at the time of Shmuel, and then at the time of David and Shaul, the Aron moves around until it finally it rested in Nov and in Givon, and finally it comes to Yerushalayim, and David brings it here, and Shlomo HaMelech, when he builds the Beis HaMikdash, so then that Aron is put into the Kodshei HaKodeshim, into the Holy of Holies, and that became the Aron Kodesh that existed in Bayis Rishon. In Bayis Sheni there was no Aron Kodesh. The Yoren Kodesh Shabayis Rishon was buried by the Novi Yirmiyah. We don't quite know where. It has spawned many searches and many books regarding it, but we don't have it anymore because the Novi did not want it to fall into the hands of the Babylonians who would defile it. And so therefore, in Bayis Sheni, there was no Oren Kodesh. There was only the Even Shasiya, the rock upon which it was supposed to be placed, but there was no Oren Kodesh itself. There are all sorts of steers to that too. There's a famous medrash that at the time of the Churban, the Goyim took out the Oren Kodesh and they saw the Kruvim. The Kruvim embraced each other in an affectionate way. If there was no Oren, then what are we talking about? And so it's not clear. It never is clear to us what the actual facts, so to speak, are. But what the message, that is drosh v'kabel schar, that we have to always look at. So what's the significance of an Aron Eitz? If the luchas belong with gold, we see in the world that when there are treasures, then the treasures are themselves encased with other things that are treasures. And gold leaf and all sorts of designs, expensive, in order to keep something that's of great value. So then why should the luchos be consigned, so to speak, to an Aron Eitz, to a plain wooden box? A plain wooden box has no value to it except the intrinsic value that you can carry things with it. But it's not known for great value. So the Meforshim say here, since the Sifrei Chasidim, the Sifrei Musar say it also, that part of the idea is that the Torah is Eitz Chaim Milamach Hazikim Bo. The Torah is a tree of life. Wood is more akin to something that grows and nurtures than gold or silver or any of the metals. Things grow from wood. And we, in fact, call the tree Eitz. And it has that quality to it. So the Torah wanted us to realize that the Torah is an Eitz Chaim. It's not a museum piece. It's not something that you put away in a gold box and then you put that in a safe deposit box and you never look at it again. There are people that have that in this world. They have jewels or other things that are of such value that they never look at them. So then what good is it? What value is it? The Torah was meant to be a practical Torah. Meant to be a Torah for everyday life. A Torah that a person should consult with every moment possible during one's lifetime. So therefore that was the idea that it should be placed in an Aron Shel Eitz, in a box that was constructed of eitz, which was a living creation, rather than be assigned completely to things that were made of gold, that are so precious that in the real world they are of little use and they are unable to really give one the feeling that the Torah wants us to have regarding it. Rabbi Hanani ben Akashi Omer Ratza HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Zakos Yisrael Yishlicha Chibur Torah Mitzvot Shenamar Adonai Chavei Zman Tzidko